Makes a lot of sense. Tia Mitchell, thank you so very much for speaking to us today. Let's bring in Juaquin Castro, former HUD secretary under Obama, as well as the former mayor of San Antonio. Secretary Castro, it is a great honor to speak to you. I have followed you, enjoyed your campaign, watching you. You were a part of many Democratic candidates from the 2020 primary and Democrats from across the country who have campaigned for Warnock and Ossoff. What did you see when you were down there, and what did you hope to accomplish by adding your name to the list of prominent Democrats campaigning for them?
Yeah, it's great to be with you, Jason. Well, a couple of weeks ago, I was there in Georgia, in the Atlanta area, and then we went to the University of Georgia there in Athens and had a great event with students. What I saw above everything else was real enthusiasm for two great candidates, for Raphael Warnock and understand the stakes of this election. They understand if they're a working family, if they're a small business owner, that what happens on January 5th is going to impact the ability of Joe Biden and the House of Representatives to work with the Senate to get important things done for those working families, for those small business owners, for people who find themselves on the brink of eviction. So you could tell it wasn't just like any other Senate race. That people understand how important this is, and my hope and my belief is that that's going to translate into tremendous turnout for these two Democratic candidates.
So, on the level of excitement, right, there have been several major Senate campaigns in the last couple of years that Democrats got excited about. They got excited about Texas, got excited about South Carolina, but Georgia's a little different. Georgia is a state that is growing. It's become, in my view, the new Ohio, the new important swing state. And one of the reasons for that is the large and growing AAPI and Latino population in the state. What's sort of the goal for Latino turnout? And when you speak to the organizations down there that are dedicated to turning out Latino voters, what are the challenges they're facing and what are they looking forward to happening on next Tuesday?
Oh, you're right about the state. Also, I mean, one way that I would distinguish it from Texas, my home state that I'm coming to you from, that we have great hopes for in cycles ahead, is that Georgia's proven itself, right? I mean, it just gave its electoral votes to Joe Biden, and largely on the turnout of African Americans, of the API community, and of the Latino community. So we know that there are over 370,000 Latinos there in Georgia who are eligible to vote, and about 250,000 who were registered as of about a month ago. There have been massive efforts to try and register more folks before the registration deadline and to turn them out. Now, what are some of the challenges to that? For a lot of folks, they haven't voted before. This is new. All of the challenges that we're seeing as well, reaching out to folks during this COVID time period, door knocking, for instance, isn't happening as much as it normally would if we weren't in a pandemic. Money certainly is not an issue. We saw the record-breaking haul that Ossoff and Warnock had, but still, anytime you're talking to people who haven't made voting a habit, that is a challenge. To their credit, both of these candidates are doing Spanish language media. They're reaching out to community groups like Galeo, which is probably the most established Georgia Latino elected official and community group there, and others, so that they can turn out people who don't normally get out in the Latinx community.
That's fantastic. I have to ask you while you're here, you have been a very, very loyal Democrat. And despite, I will say this, in my opinion, a bit of a snub at the Democratic convention, you have been committed to the Democratic Party and working very, very hard. And I have to ask you, heading into this newest administration, there's been a lot of criticism of the Biden administration, whether they have been as diverse enough in their selections, whether they've picked enough Latino Americans, whether they've picked enough African Americans. As someone who was a part of a diverse administration under Obama, what kinds of things and what kinds of people would you like to see Joe Biden looking to bring into this administration so that it reflects the coalition that actually got him elected?
Yeah, well, I think he's made some great selections, and just within the Latino community, you take folks like Javier Becerra and Mr. Mayorkas and Mr. Cardona. Still has not appointed a Latina, and I hope that oversight will be addressed. Tremendous, I think, talent in terms of the African American community. I do think that the AAPI community needs to be better represented. It was historic to see Congresswoman Holland nominated to be Interior Secretary because it was unconscionable that there had never been, and until she's appointed, there will not have been an appointed cabinet member who was Native American. All of that is good, but it's also still a work in progress. You have to balance, I think, people who have been around Washington for a long time with fresh, new voices that can add the kind of perspective that will give some dynamism, I think, and a new direction to the years ahead. And I have confidence, though, in Vice President Biden and in Vice President-to-be Kamala Harris. I think that they understand that. And Donald Trump, 4 years ago, told people that he was going to surround himself with the best people, the most talented people. And that turned out not to be true. That was quite a lie. In fact, it was the opposite. Fortunately, I think President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris are going to surround themselves, because we already have evidence of this, with some of the best, most talented, most dedicated public servants who have a strong vision that is inclusive and is going to make sure that even the most vulnerable communities out there are well served. And we need that because we're in an emergency right now with COVID-19.
Well, since we're talking about the best people, I have to ask, if you get that call, would you join this new administration? You've already served. You were clearly a better HUD secretary than Dr. Ben Carson. Would you be willing to be a part of this new administration?
I haven't put anything on the table, and I hadn't taken anything off the table. Of course, I would take a call if I received one. It was the honor of my lifetime to serve President Obama as HUD secretary. And I know that this next administration is going to do a tremendous job for the people that all of us care about. And so, of course, I would have that conversation. But I also know that, whatever happens with me, that Vice President-elect Harris and President-elect Biden are going to have a great team that will much better serve America than what we've had over the last 4 years. And that's what's important, that people who urgently need help right now get that help. If I could just say, Jason, one last thing, with these Georgia Senate runoffs, what we need right now is not divided, squabbling government. What we need is for Joe Biden to have a House of Representatives and a Senate that he can actually work with, people rowing in the same direction. So anybody watching Georgia, if you're like on the bubble and you really are one of those swing voters, although I know there are less and less of them these days, we're in an emergency. We're in a crisis. What you need right now is not squabbling and divided government. You actually need to give Joe Biden partners that he can work with to get things done for you and your family. And I hope the Georgians will respond to that.
I hope they do. I hope they respond to your message. Julian Castro, thank you so very much for spending some time with us today.
Thank you.